Hark the bardic paladin, who sings and plays again. He tells the tales of glory and weaves a magic story. He'll join you at your table and ask you to share a fable. Heroes of humble origin, villains who must be fought again. No matter their skill or prowess, the people in life are countless. So we pray you heed our request. Enjoy this tale of sidekicks and side quests.
Episode 70, Thistle, the Sky Elf Painter.
Welcome to Sidekicks and Side Quests, the Dungeons & Dragons podcast that helps to put humans back into humanity and breathe life into your campaign NPCs with backstory and bravado. That's right, we're building a world, one character at a time. I am your host, Kurt Krenwelge, the Bardic Paladin, and I'll be joining
Katherine Spittler's table in the Levitating Platter. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests, the best unofficial Dungeons & Dragons podcast, in my humbly biased opinion. I'm joined this week by a wonderful guest, but before we get to my guest, I always have to leave you in suspense. This podcast is brought to you by our first ever sponsor, Plus One EXP. Tony Vicinda, previous guest, is the mastermind behind this mastercraft of beard balms, game design, and community building. He's got beard balms named after all the basic stats from D&D, so get a can, apply it to your facial features, and smell the sweet aroma and the sweet victory that comes with increased strength, dexterity, charisma, and more. Beards and Beyond is the indie RPG that helped to launch this brand, but Tony has collaborated and developed several other projects, including Repugnant with Terrible Games, iToaster, a Brave Little Toaster-inspired TTRPG, and Down We Go, a game which seeks to capture the heart of old-school tabletop gaming, as well as this really cool sci-fi spacey one called Through the Void, which seems pretty gnarly as well. If you support Plus One EXP, either by buying something or supporting them on Patreon or the like, it helps all funnel into the Plus One Forward program, which seeks to support additional indie tabletop content creators to continue making awesome stuff. So I would highly encourage you to go on over to Tony and Plus One EXP's socials on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch in order to keep up with all the various projects that he's working on, as well as upcoming interviews, one-shots, and actual plays of some of these amazing indie games. And if you don't mind, when you go to plusoneexp.com, use my affiliate code Randolph, and you're going to save some money whenever you buy a beard balm or a beard RPG game. These savings are no additional cost to you. And again, that code is Randolph at checkout on the website plusoneexp.com. All right, after getting through that, hello, mystery guest. Would you care to introduce yourself to our lovely podcast audience?
Hello, my name is Katherine Spittler, and you and I are work friends. We work together, and professionally, I'm a graphic designer, kind of been an artist on the side for most of my life, and then I'm a full-time mom otherwise. So yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah, and you do play in a D&D campaign with me as well.
That's true, yes.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a pretty softball question here, but do you currently or have you ever played Dungeons & Dragons before?
Yes. Yes. So like you said, I currently play in the campaign you're running right now, which has been a lot of fun. And I have been playing 5th edition D&D. I want to say definitely since 2016. I think that's the year I really got into it. Up until recently with your campaign, I had been playing with Adventurers League through my local game stores, which was an excellent way to get started and face to face with people. It was a lot of fun. So I learned a lot that way. I got my start, as many of your listeners probably, and many D&D fans did, by watching, Critical Role and stuff like that, and loved it so much I wanted to try the game, and there you go. Here I am.
I was going to say, I've never done Adventurers League myself, because I started in college on the 4th edition, so I've just always played with groups of friends and stuff. But what's Adventurers League been like?
It was cool. I mean, I literally, when I wanted to start playing, I hopped onto Google and just said, "Where can I start playing D&D?" And I showed up, and the people there were super nice. So it's a really cool. It's organized play. So
Mhm.
the idea is that you kind of get like a number, assigned to you, and the idea is that you can go to any participating store, library, whoever like runs an Adventurers League game. You can go to a place in Seattle, Washington, or Buffalo, New York, where I'm from, or anywhere in the world, really. I think, and you take a character and you can bring them with you, provided there's certain things that are AL legal, more rules than a homebrew game. There's a campaign, the books that come out, like they did one for Storm King's Thunder, Yawning Portal, that type of thing. And you play through a campaign with the same table the whole way through, anywhere from a year to 6 months, depending. And there's also like pickup games, like one shots we would do on the weekends from time to time. And it was great. I was a player for most of it. I actually DM'd my very first campaign once, which was respect to all you DMs out there. But yeah, it's a great way to get started, especially if you want to connect with your local community. And I know that some people kind of went off and they found friends, they found a table they loved, and went off and did a homebrew game. So actually, your campaign is my first homebrew experience, which has been awesome. So there you go.
Well, yeah, and as you were speaking with your first stepping into a DM shoes, and I've complimented you on our homebrew game because while it certainly is a collective brainchild of all of the players in the game, and my wife and I certainly developing a fair bit of lore, but you and I, surprisingly, because your character is from where the adventure is taking place, we've developed a significant amount of lore that's had major implications with the homebrew setting, which has been kind of a wonderful discovery along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, thank you for entertaining some of my ideas and questions. But I just love world building in general, whether it's for tabletop games or just kind of coming up with stories or whatnot. It's a personally fascinating topic. So it's been a lot of fun kind of building out the world we're playing in.
Well, this podcast is called Sidekicks and Side Quests, so I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, do you happen to have a favorite NPC, whether they're from an RPG, a video game, movie, film, television, etc., and why are they your favorite? I might have some suspicions, but I'll wait to see what you actually say is the answer.
Can I only give one answer?
I
I
guess
might have
I've
a
given
couple.
multiple answers, I suppose. I'll allow it.
Okay. Well, I guess again, because it's where my love of D&D started, I obviously have to, reference Critical Role. I think a lot of people loved this NPC from campaign 1, but Victor the Black Powder Merchant just has a special place, I think, in the heart of the fandom. It was the first time, like one of the first times I literally like LOL laughed out loud, just like it was so funny. There's so many good ones, but that's obviously just one that makes me laugh every time. I am a huge BioWare fan. All their games I just adore, and I'm actually starting a new playthrough of the Mass Effect games. I'd done it, back when they came out, and I'm doing it again. And I've always loved Garrus. He's got to be my favorite.
Yep.
The crewmates, just yeah. I don't know, just the way they wrote him, everything from I just love the design of the Turians in general. And just like the friendship that you build, whether or not you are, you're just friends or you're romantic or whatever, like it's just, I think a really well-written character. And I love that arc of the kind of like, just the arc that he goes through. It's just fascinating. And then if you do happen to kind of get in a relationship or whatnot, just like the cool dialogue that you get, it's just a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun.
I think you and I have both joked about, with BioWare games that the romance component is
essential to saving the world. So if you never romance,
It
then
is.
it's like you can't save
Guys.
the universe if you don't romance Garrus.
I mean, yeah. Like it's funny because I didn't the first time through, and after playing the game, I'm like, I gotta like it's just too like I love just the arc that you go through if you choose that. It's just I think one of the best, the richest, just the way I play everything. So yeah, I'd have to say that. And I could go on and on about other games and whatnot, but we'll, if you want me to, I will. But if not, we can go on to the next stuff.
I mean, if there's if there's another NPC that kind of speaks to you on a deep level, yeah, I mean, it could be from a tabletop game, it could be from another BioWare
Enterprise, I suppose.
Oh man, surprisingly, D&D is the only tabletop game that I've really played. Beyond just like board games and stuff. Yeah, I guess I'll leave it there. Like, if I could talk an entire podcast about my favorite BioWare games and all the characters that I love. So highly recommend if you haven't played
This
Mass
little
Effect
game
or Dragon
it's
Age.
called Mass Effect. Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
Legendary Edition just came out. Yeah.
Yeah. But also kind of thinking about D&D, Dragon Age is very much like inspired by, it's fantasy. It's very much inspired by D&D. Love that. Actually, one of my favorite NPCs ends up being a villain, and I'll leave it there because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. But also, again, awesome writing, excellent characters. Highly recommend check them out. So.
And then, as far as the side quest portion of the podcast, do you happen to have a favorite side quest from an RPG, video game, movie, film, television, etc.? And why has it been one of your favorite side quests?
Well, I was thinking about this earlier and I was having a really tough time actually. But again, if just off the top of my head, one of the reasons I loved the most recent Dragon Age game, Dragon Age Inquisition, was just the fact that you could explore for hours and hours and hours these beautiful landscapes and get lost in anything as simple as, I need to pick this much elf root to make a special potion. Just completely ignore the giant gaping hole in the sky over here. But I think one of my favorites was, there's a particular companion that you can recruit, and he has a very unique story in that he's caught between being a spirit and being a human. And again, I don't want to give too much away for those who will play. His name is Cole. And though I remember not playing a ton with him, but I just remember loving the way that each character has kind of their own side quests that you can follow through the game. And it was just fascinating to kind of dip a toe into that, because the world of like spirits and reality, material, plane, if you will, meeting, and that dynamic is very important to the game. He's kind of a manifestation of that, and the choice you get to make kind of as his story progresses, you can kind of push him one way or the other. It was really interesting and different, and how they wrote him was really cute. And yeah, I guess I'd have to say that off the top of my head, that's what comes to mind. There's so many good ones to choose from, but I'll stick with that for now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we're already here at the last question of the personal interview section, but what are you passionate about and why?
I have always, it was one of the things, since I could pick up a pencil, pick up a crayon, like I've always been passionate about art and, drawing, painting, that sort of thing. And it's how I told stories as a kid. Like I'd come up with these crazy stories in my head, and I would fill spiral bound notebooks of literally, if I look back on them, it would look like either comic strips or storyboards, like fill them up. And it's ebbed and flowed throughout the years depending on what else is going on in my life. Sure. But that's always kind of been a continuum, and right now in the phase of life, I'm a mom to a beautiful, boisterous, almost 2-year-old boy. And so just really kind of embracing motherhood and learning all about that, how to navigate that. And it's been an adventure, and I love him so much. He keeps us busy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we bond over that, being parents in a pandemic of young boys
and raising them the right way.
Yeah, so we oftentimes commiserate of like, oh man, a sleepless night, or oh, what's he doing this time, or what's he doing this week? So it's good out there, parent listeners, I guess, of the podcast, to make sure you have those parent friends that you're checking in with and bonding with, to, because it takes
a village to raise a kid, I think, is the saying, right?
Yes, it does. It absolutely does. And, and something else kind of blending with what we've been talking about is making time for fun, things that are like playing D&D. It brings me a lot of joy. It's you need something for yourself, something that it's not connected to anything. it's not useful. It's strictly for fun and filling your cup, laughter and imagination, and you need it. And it's really important. And it's something that I will say I'm passionate about, is advocating for parents, especially moms, to make space for that and make it a priority. It's really important to mental health, to friendships, to just, your identity. So go out there and find something that you have fun with.
Well, we've learned a lot here about our guest, Katherine. So now I think it's time we head into some NPC creation. Well, since it's now live, NPC creation is brought to you by you. So everyone who supports the podcast. So if you go on over to patreon.com/sidekicks and sidequests, you can join the cheapest Patreon account ever. I think they're $1, $2, and $4. So it's a bargain. And just for $1, you get your name posted up on the website. $2 will give you a cheers. So at this point in the recording, we don't have any patrons yet to give a $2 loud hurrah to, but this is where we do that. And then, of course, if you're a $4 patron, you get to add an element of chance. That means you get to contribute to all the random tables that are here in the NPC creation part of the show. So hopefully that's a good enticement to just, help this show continue to grow. I mean, I'm going to continue offering it for free, but, if you love it, give me a little bit of kickback on Patreon and I'd appreciate it. So, but okay, in talking in advance and preparing for this section, you said you had some loose ideas of what kind of a character you were interested in, but otherwise you were going to leave the rest of it to fates. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so what kind of a mold are we working with today?
Sure. So I think the only kind of characteristic that I wanted to include is that regardless of race, gender, location, whatever, I would like this character to be an artist of some sort, kind of playing off of my own background and everything that I love with that. This character is an artist, whether probably a painter, portraitist of some sort. And so that's, an integral element of who they are. And potentially it could have something to do with the side quest that they would then send our players upon.
Okay, so just so I understand, we've already got the job locked in and then possibly the side quest that they're going to offer up.
Yes.
Okay.
Loosely,
all right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then the first thing that we do get to roll for randomly is the character name. So you'll need a d20.
And then give that a roll, and we'll let you know what your character name is.
Okay. I think that is a 9.
9. Okay. Your character's name is Thistle.
Thistle.
Yeah,
Cool.
like a plant, like a thistle.
Yeah. I like it.
Now we get to determine what is the ancestry of this character. This will be a D100 or a 2D10 roll.
All right, let me just push that out. Okay, here we go. All right, 76.
76 as I check the list. Oh, okay. All right. We're in the elf category, which means this is like standard D&D elf. So that means we could have a high/sun elf, a moon elf, wood, sea, sky, shadow, drow, eladrin, or like a half elf variation. So Thistle is some kind of elf. What elf? What's your flavor?
This is Baskin-Robbins. What flavor of elf would you like?
Ooh, good question.
Which I think also in real life, you and me talking while we work is you're like, oh, I really like elves. And
I especially like the elves in our home game. So
yes, they're one of my favorite races because I'm a Tolkien fan. And so, they're one of my favorites. Ooh, how many are there? Can I roll for it?
Okay, I guess it's 8 categories, I guess.
So that's a D8. And then the half could just be if you wanted a coin flip for it, or even or odd for if you wanted it to be a half or not.
All right. Well, first I'm gonna roll the D8. Okay, a 5.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sky elf, I guess.
Ooh, sure. I love it.
Okay. I don't know. Do you want a half sky elf or do you just want a full sky elf?
I like the full. Let's
Okay.
go full
So
sky elf.
Thistle is a sky elf. Okay, so this is the second
Mhm.
sky elf we've had on the podcast thus far. So, okay,
Cool.
cool.
Okay, so the question is, what is your job or role in society? Painter, like a master painter, then?
Yeah. And like a portraitist, like oil paint and, probably takes commissions, that sort of thing. Fine artist.
Fine artist, works in many a court of sky elf nobility, or just nobility in general, I suppose.
Sure.
Let's see the age range of this character. So that is going to be also a D8 to roll.
Okay. That is a 6.
Elder. Okay, so this sky elf is a little bit older.
In their life
Okay.
cycle. So,
I think according to Hoyle, it says elves lived up to like 750, and obviously with homebrew settings and stuff, it might be different, but elder is the category of the age range of the elf. I don't know if a number just automatically pops into your head or not, but
Let's say around 700.
a 700-year-old sky elf named Thistle. Okay? All right, so now we get to take a pause. This is where your graphic designer brain gets to come in. So now we have to come up with a physical description. So when we picture Thistle,
what are we seeing
Mhm.
based on what we know?
Okay. Remind me really quick with sky elves, they do have wings, correct?
Yes, they do have large angelic-like wings that
Okay.
protrude from their back.
Okay. Right. Well, I guess taking a little
maybe
bit of
bird-like.
inspiration. Oh, okay.
I guess it could be bird-like if you wanted it to be. I mean, I could Google it real quick, but I know it's
No.
Adriel.
I think, yeah, I'm getting a picture in my head here. So, I kind of like, kind of from her name almost. So I imagine actually kind of like a shorter hair on the short side, not like completely, closely cropped, but shorter.
Mhm.
Maybe not a little like a long pixie cut. Her coloration is very much kind of like soft greens with maybe purple. Whether it's her feathers or the wings are kind of this mix. Maybe like it starts there's green and purple in her wings and the feathers. And I would think like maybe the tiny like little tiny baby feathers would kind of trail up like her neck into her hair maybe a little bit. Maybe here and there patterns of it over her skin. I'd say like kind of medium fair skin. I like the idea of kind of like violet like light purple kind of eyes. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, and then her clothing, I don't know if that's something we roll for,
Yeah.
but
No. It's all
kind
part of physical description.
yeah. Yeah, I would say again, she kind of has a theme going, leaning into the her name. Again, similar, mixtures of maybe gray and brown, but with kind of accents of the green and the light purple in there as well. Given that she's a painter, I imagine when she's working, she would wear an apron of some sort, like a finely made smock over, relatively simple but finely made clothing, nice blouse with a skirt and some boots with the apron over it, with various, paintbrushes and whatnot. I imagine like her clothing itself is pretty pristine, but the apron itself is just like oh my goodness, it's almost a work of art in and of itself with how much this has been well loved, well used. Yeah, I like that.
and if you had to describe Thistle with 3 adjectives, what 3 adjectives would you pick?
Good question. I would say certainly I like to imagine that she is there's certainly a quirky element to her. I know it's kind of a general term, but this like, she's an artist, kind of lean into that, like very, I'll just say quirky. You can interpret that however you want, but then I would say also kind. She's very personable, warm. That warm kindness. And let's see, a third. I'm blanking.
Is there like some flaw or vice that she has that like comes through as one of the adjectives that,
She's this artist, but like,
she's always seeking perfection. And so she's like,
she has these bouts of like being really temperamental.
Or the fact that she's 700 years old, maybe she just doesn't care. She's like, Oh, I'll work that flaw into it.
I'll figure out some way
Like
to
happy
blend it
happy
in.
accidents.
Yeah, Bob Ross it. She Bob Rosses it all the time or something.
Yeah. Um, actually, I do like they did because it's not completely autobiographical, but maybe inserting a little bit of me into her with that idea of like maybe she's a perfectionist. And yeah, if something like seemingly, she'll be happily chatting with somebody and working on it, and all of a sudden, she gets really frustrated with oh, she messed this one little thing up, or oh, someone's touching her paints that were put together just the right way. And you'll see that kind of very, very spunky, kind of snarky. So maybe, yeah, that
Her
perfectionist.
feathers floof up really.
Yes, they kind of bristle up.
Who was
Love
in
it,
here
yes.
touching my stuff?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now we get to go back to rolling some dice. Now we have to figure out what's a valuable item, a piece of lore, a secret, or an ideal or concept that Thistle ascribes to. So the first thing we have to roll is a d4 to figure out the category, and then we're going to roll a d6 from within that category.
Okay. So I got a 3.
3 is a secret.
Juicy.
Ooh.
Okay. Now you get to roll a d6.
All right. 2.
2. Okay, this answer was submitted by previous guest and sponsor of the show, Tony Vicinda. Thistle is in love with one of the player characters.
So 700-year-old
Amazing.
Sky Elf.
That's up for your campaign to figure out how that happens, but apparently the secret is that Thistle's in love with one of the player characters of your game.
Amazing.
Yep.
We need to figure out what's going to be a particular side quest that Thistle would be willing to recruit or hire player characters to go and do on her behalf. So if you want to roll for it, it's a d12, or otherwise, if you're already inspired, what are you thinking is going to be a side quest?
Well, I would say I kind of had 2 directions that it could go in. So maybe within one of those, we could then roll. One would either be about, almost like material acquisition. She's commissioned to paint a very important portrait, and there's just this shade of blue or red or, some shade of color that just like it requires a very rare ingredient to get just that right pigment. And so it's kind of almost like a fetch quest, a gather quest to bring that back. Or it could be something along the lines of, maybe someone is almost like making forgeries of her work, or is like trying to ride her coattails, or kind of, steal her reputation type of thing. And she wants a fact-finding mission to, the players to figure out who's behind this. So kind of 2 directions. I don't know, maybe it's a coin flip for one of those, unless something is, sparking with you, but
I'm just here to facilitate, so it's whatever you feel the spirit is moving you to. What do you think Thistle would be more interested in asking the player characters to help with? Especially since her deepest, darkest secret apparently is that she's in love with one of the player characters. So how is that going to affect the dynamic of them asking for help?
this is true. I think, yeah, I am going to roll for it. So I'll let you know in a second what I get. Okay, so I was going to say 1 through roll a d6. 1 through 3 was going to be the materials fetch quest. So we'd imagine, someone's commissioned her, someone very important has commissioned a painting, and she needs a particular material in order to accomplish it. So she needs someone to go get it.
Are we going to leave it up to the dungeon master in this particular circumstance to kind of come up with the idea of why this particular shade of paint is so rare and she needs the player characters to go and see to it? Or is it something else, like, oh, this other painter I know has this shade and they're kind of bogarting it, and I need you to go get it because that's the shade that I need to finish this painting? Like they're a former student of mine, or they're a rival, or I don't know, anything like that. Or it's just like it's in this really obscure market, it's the 3rd shop down. Once you're in the weird part of town, you just knock on the door and then the guy will let you in, and then you just ask for this paint and he gets it to you. You don't ask too many questions about what makes up the paint, but it's a good paint that I've been using for the last 600 years.
Those are all really good. One of the ideas I had was I guess this would be maybe a little bit up to DM discretion in that, I kind of think of like, oh, like there's an actual, I'm forgetting the exact species or what color it actually makes, but there's a story I heard from, art history that there were parts of history that tell of like certain pigments were acquired by harvesting this particular like a mussel, like a clam type thing, and there's the species of beetle that like you can only get the shade of green if you do that. So perhaps it's something where like I would say she would either send them to somebody who like lives in the nearby insert woods or mountains or whatever setting, and then maybe they're like a druid or a hermit or somebody who grows this stuff, and various encounters could happen along the way. Or it's literally a quest to, you're going to have to fight something in order to harvest a particular part that she knows how to. If you get the tooth of this or the shell of that or the feather of this, maybe the DM could be a little creative with what they want that to be. Maybe they get to pick the color, but it's maybe a monster you have to defeat, and this particular part makes a very good pigment, and she would like that.
So you are leaving that up to Dungeon Master discretion as to exactly where the pigment is located, whether it's a finished product or, hey, I need you to go kill this thing so that way I can use my skills to make it into the pigment that I need it to be.
I think so, only because, if you can drop Thistle into any campaign, whether it's you're currently in a big city or you're on the coastline or you're venturing through a forest village or something, hopefully the DM can then use whatever setting you're in and kind of customize it to what your players like to do, the setting that you're in. Yeah, if that's an option.
All right, so we have two questions to consider then based on this side quest of acquiring this final mystery ingredient for the elusive pigment. What's going to be the reward for success? How is Thistle going to reward the party? Is she going to profess her undying love?
For one person, yeah. One person is going to have a great day or bad day. I'm not sure. Well, certainly one of the rewards could be money. She probably has a long long history of paying adventurers to acquire her these rare pigments, and so she's done well for herself, and she can probably pay some money, or probably would want to offer maybe to this paramour of hers a free portrait. She's very well known, and it can be traded maybe not traded away, but if you traded it for a painting, her artwork, I imagine, is well known in that region. It sells for a good price, so
it adds a lot of material value to your stronghold. So you build a stronghold, and then she makes you a portrait. You hang it right over the mantelpiece, and you're like, yes, this really ties the room together and just makes your place that much cooler.
Sure.
But now we have to consider the opposite. What's going to be the consequence of failure or refusing the call to go fetch the elusive pigment?
Ooh, well,
is
for
she going to be
sure.
heartbroken?
Well, for sure, the person that she's in love with is, you're going to have a spurned lover, pining after you and maybe sending people to check on you, how you're doing, wherever you are. I would think, though, in general, that, given that she probably works with nobility, people who are of means, word might get around that she was stiffed by some people who said they would take a job or turned her down. She probably chats and rubs elbows, and your reputation in her particular area might, if you need any favors from the well-to-do, you might find some cold shoulders. Maybe even some merchants who she works with to get her materials might raise the price a little bit on some things.
Interesting. Hitting the players where it hurts. In the pocketbook.
No.
I guess I would say, maybe to go along with her personality, at least the people in her immediate community, her own little reputation. Like, I imagine she does have kind of a close circle of friends, but she's also got, again, kind of this reputation as like, oh, Thistle, she's a little, like everyone kind of knows that she's a little bit eccentric. Not to, don't touch her paints, don't touch her brushes. Like, if you just don't, that type of thing. But also like respect, like she does beautiful work. She's well known. And again, that kind of, she does like, she looks out for her neighbors, and while she may be a little kooky, a little interesting, she has a good heart, and, takes care of her community as well. So yeah.
All right. Well, we've learned so much about Thistle then that I think it's time we head into a random encounter. And this random encounter is brought to you by Reaper Miniatures. They have been Texas Titans of the tabletop industry since 1994. They're right here in our backyard of DFW, and they've got an amazing warehouse and game store. They make everything from paints to gaming accessories and stream on Twitch and YouTube with tutorials and interviews. Whatever system you're running, whatever game you're playing, Reaper Miniatures has got you covered. Every time you shop with them and spend at least $40, $50, I know that changed recently, after you spend X amount of dollars, they're going to throw in a cool new mini of the month for free with your order, and it's always something new, so more incentive to come back and shop with them every month. If you visit my website or you check the show notes, you should find a link to support Sidekicks and SideQuests, so that way you can get your savings. By clicking that link in the show notes or through my website, you're helping to track the traffic that Sidekicks and SideQuests sends to Reaper Miniatures, and that just helps us to continue to combine our powers of might. At this point, I had some gift cards saved up for Christmas that the wife and I used, and we got a bunch of new cool minis that we're going to paint up. And I checked my inbox again recently, had another $50 gift card. So again, thank you everybody for using that referral link and going to Reaper Miniatures through that way. So again, be sure to check out the link on my website in the show notes. Use that to get to Reaper Miniatures and follow them on all the socials: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. All right, so now that we are here in the random encounter section, we're going to do a roleplay vignette of a representation of when we come across Thistle, what is she going to be like? And we have a couple different ways we could do this. She could meet one of the podcast NPCs and commission the quest that way. Or if you kind of have an idea of a scene that you'd like her to be represented in, we could do that, and I could just, riff on the spot. What are you thinking? I know the podcast has, at this point, 4 NPC characters to use. Duncan, the suicidally brave, happy-go-lucky adventurer. We have Sonia, the warrior woman, multi-classed into paladin. We have Korak, the lawful evil, arcane trickster dwarf. And then we have, brand new, Chrisley, the wood elf, botanist, herbalist, shy druid.
Ooh. Yeah, I didn't have anything kind of pre-prepared or a scenario, so let's go with one of the NPCs.
So of those 4, which are you most interested in kind of playing off against?
I think, I mean, Duncan's a classic, but the, was it Chrisley, the shy druid? Mm-hmm. He also seems like he'd be fun to play off of too, so.
Okay, you want to go with Chrisley?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's try out the new guy.
All right, we will set the scene then. So where we last left our hero Chrisley, she was helping Atta, the half-orc, half-dryad druid of the Dovecote Cafe. She was acquiring a magic mushroom bit from the caves that were south of the swamps of her ruins of her cafe to bring it back to her. And so now, after some experimental kombucha tea potion drinking, she's a little more equipped with some potions. And of course, along the way, Chrisley was happy as a representative of the Woad to continue documenting all the new plants and animals she was finding and being nature's champion. And it's not long before, Atta kind of points her in a direction of kind of like this nearby royal city. And so Chrisley makes her way, and of course, she's a spring chicken of her early hundreds, and getting to finally interact with people, and she finds herself in this royal city, and she's just kind of blown away by civilization. She's never come across anything like this. We will say that in this particular case, maybe we are near some sort of merchant district. And the artsy-fartsy part, she's trying to look for any interesting animals or plants. She's trying to, shyly keep to herself. But we'll say this oh, this perfectionist, quirky sort of outburst is overheard as someone is berating or perhaps incredulous with a certain merchant of a lacking ingredient or something.
Sounds good. That's a really good setup. Yeah, so Chrisley would walk up to a kind of like I would say the seafood kind of section. And there stands feathers bristled out in their full glory. um, Kind of in profile, I would say you see this, kind of medium height sky elf woman in her older years, just almost red in the face at this point, kind of pulling out her hair a little bit. You kind of would overhear her going like, "What do you mean you don't have what I need? I have a deadline to meet. Goodness, oh, this is awful. Oh my goodness, I can't believe this." Blah, 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 and just starts muttering to herself as she kind of starts turning away and looks kind of lost in thought.
Chrisley is like so nervous and not wanting to, I guess, disturb anyone that she inadvertently fails to notice, or she like gets so engrossed in the outburst or something that she just kind of bumps into her and doesn't realize. And she's like, "Oh!" Her notes all fall down on the ground. She's like, "Oh my goodness!" And she's scooping up her notes and trying to collect them. And as Thistle turns around to look at her, I mean, I'm sure Thistle's met all kinds of elves and all sorts of peoples over her years, but maybe perhaps not seen one this new or fresh into the world from the Woad, because she can still see that there are bits of like organic matter and life and like these vestiges of her old elven ways back in the Woad. They're slowly disappearing as she's getting more acclimatized to civilization and stuff like that, but maybe colors or something that she just hasn't seen in a while. So with her quirky nature, she just kind of like is drawn to the fact of like this wood elf druid is like has colors that she hasn't seen in a while. Maybe that sparks her creativity or something.
Absolutely. Yeah, kind of bumping into her kind of takes her out of the state of mind she was in, like, "Oh, let me help you. I'm sorry, and kind of helps her get cleaned up. And then pauses as she looks at Christine like, "Oh my goodness, aren't you a spry young thing? I haven't seen someone. Oh my goodness, what a beautiful." And she starts just almost like a bird, like preening over Chrisley, whether she wants it or not.
Yeah,
Just kind of
Chrisley
like
just kind of
admiring.
freezes. She recognizes that this elf is her elder, and she just
As she's very deferential, and she like listens to the council, and she has this charge, and so she respects her elders. So she just kind of freezes and lets
Thistle do what she's doing.
Yeah, she's not like touching her all over. It's more just kind of like pointing out certain things, saying different colors, and there's 50 different shades of blue and then red and whatever. She's just spouting out names. It's like completely lost and just admiring the appearance of this young one in front of her. And in the middle of that, you see her kind of like snap to attention almost, and she would say, like, "You look like you know your way around plants. Is that right?" Kind of just.
she'll open up her book and she'll be like, I've been sent from the Woad, and I'm to document all my findings and to help defend nature as the Woad has directed me." And you start flipping through, and she's not that far into her book, but you do see that she's kind of a bit of an artist herself, amateurish in a way, but you can see that there are these fairly detailed sketches of like various plants, and she's written her notes in Elvish, and kind of like maybe from a more druidic point of view. So she's talking about things of like as if she's talking to plants, or like she knows plant names on a deeper level. So maybe kind of like a different relation to nature than maybe what Thistle is normally, like a different quirky. When suddenly one quirky meets like a completely different quirky, that actually kind of makes her kind of take a moment to step back. But yeah, she kind of shows you the notes, and so she's like, "Yeah, I was just recently in these swamps and these caves, and there was and she starts going into this whole like long drawn out tangent about funguses and swamp gas, bullfrogs, and all these sorts of things that if you just let her go, she'll ramble for another half hour unless you intervene and stop her.
Thistle's absolutely looking at the sketchbook, admiring, and it's like it starts to pull out one of her own. Show me, show me yours. I'll show you mine. It's like, oh, excellent, excellent. I need this. And she just flips to a particular page in this, for as like put together as she is, like this sketchbook is just pages stuck together, things sticking out, but like strangely organized. And we'll open it up to a particular page where there are a few different sketches and drawings, but she'll point to one on the page and we'll just say, insert, berry or bark or fish or whatever the thing is that this particular color comes from. She'll point to that and be like, do you know what this is? It's found in the forest just over here, forest, coastline, insert your location there. And we'll essentially, insist that this young elf looks like she needs a little bit of direction and looks like she's not doing anything particular. So like, I'll pay well for it. Or if you want a portrait, I'm a very well-known artist, but I would really appreciate it. I'm really in a bind, and just kind of ramble on about this deadline she has for a commission.
We'll say that, like I said, Chrisley is very deferential to her elders, and the fact that this elder is exasperated about a deadline, she's like, oh my gosh, I don't want you to be inconvenienced. The gods above forbid that you be inconvenienced. So yes, let me drop everything and take care of this for you. I know my way around plants and animals. It's no problem. I can go fetch you this ingredients. And then I can, make my new discoveries along the way and document them and then be able to return that information to the Woad.
Very good.
All right. And so then I suppose without a further moment's hesitation, probably she'll ask like, oh, where can I find you and stuff like that. But aside from that, she's just
probably would give her the address for her studio.
Yeah, she'll probably just take off like a bird, just like shooting off real fast. And, before Thistle has a moment to be like, no, let me tell you about this one time when I did this thing. And then she's like, oh, she's gone already. Like, oh, okay. All right. Well, I guess I'll head back to my studio and just wait for her to show up.
Yeah, pretty much.
And scene.
So,
cool.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. So you feel like that was a pretty good representation of Thistle in this particular circumstance?
Yeah, I think so. Kind of playing up that, sort of she's in a huff, but as soon as some, sign that order can be restored to her work, she gets focused and, very, very directly, but, interacts with the players. And DMs feel free to, insert your own detail into that interaction. But yeah, I think that's pretty good. That was fun.
So now that you've had an opportunity to see Thistle in a random encounter, are you already forming the mental picture of how you're going to draw Thistle? Because spoiler alert, this episode is going to have artwork for Thistle that we'll be able to provide in the write-up of the characters. Is that correct?
That's the plan.
That's the plan.
No, this has been really helpful. Yeah, building out the physical description, and then again, even mannerisms and way of interacting will inform even just like posture and facial expression. But yeah, I'm already forming a pretty good picture in my head.
Do you think that's a way that more graphic artists and designers should go about approaching whether they're D&D characters or anything else? It's like, maybe take a moment to inhabit the character and kind of see them in a situation. Then you start getting that idea of like, oh, this is how they move. This is how they would gesticulate. And this is how they would present themselves in society and stuff.
I think it's absolutely helpful. It goes back, I think, one of the reasons why I've gotten so much inspiration for my own artwork from D&D, for many years. It was kind of like the leading inspiration source for just my own personal work. Kind of goes back to like when I was a kid. Like I said, I would narrate these stories and kind of, like you said, inhabit these characters. And I took a lot of inspiration even from Disney animators and stuff like that. Fascinated with animation, how they themselves, like they encourage new artists to do that, come up with a voice, come up with a way they would move. And it totally brings more life and kind of new surprises to your work. And I love just that, D&D has a built-in prompt generator. If you're looking for an idea for, something to draw, or you've got an idea, but you're kind of stuck, roll some dice and, give it a shot.
Very good. And as we are here in the final thoughts section of the show, this is the ending and this is the part where I like to give the platform, the soapbox, the stage over to the guest. And so if there's anything else that you want to share about your experience here today, if there's any socials, if there's any projects or things that you're involved with that we're able to know about, go ahead and plug those here and now.
Sure. Well, we'll see in the coming weeks if I can get my act together. I am working on rebuilding and reintroducing an art dedicated web presence. Again, for many years, I've dedicated myself to being a mom and, focusing on my professional work. So not much personal work to show, but more recently. So I maybe in like show notes or something like that when this episode comes out, I'll have something to include where you can look me up. But no, this was fun. I mean, I love, one of the reasons I fell in love with D&D beyond just, getting together with friends and whatnot, but just the storytelling, the communal storytelling. As an artist, it's just, oh my goodness, a cornucopia of ideas. It's ripe ground for that, and it's really inspiring. And I'll say it was really a big help for me, in the past few years, just like keeping inspired and keeping creating. And so I'm really thankful for it. I'm really excited to see, stuff like this podcast that you do, web streams, and just and the art that's coming out of kind of this groundswell of interest in the game. But again, I don't know, it just kind of goes back to what I said in the beginning. What I'm passionate about is, whether it's D&D or it's art or it's writing or whatever it may be, especially if you're a parent, but you don't have to be, but especially given the times that we have lived through as of late, it's become very apparent that life is short. Make fun a priority. Find something that you do that is for no other reason than it's just fun. Make it ridiculous, make it silly, and prioritize that, because it's so important. It's the flavor. It's what makes life worth living, and share it with people, share it. And I have my own hesitations sometimes about sharing my own personal work, but it brings others joy, and share the good.
Yeah, no, I definitely get spoiled at our job at work when we're able to talk, because, she may be selling herself short, but, she does phenomenal work. And so whenever we get to discuss NPC characters from our campaign, and she's like, look what I whipped up. And I'm like, you just whipped this up in like
a 20-minute coffee break? She's like, yeah, no big deal. Brush my shoulders. And she does amazing stuff. And so I can't wait to
get that all in the show notes, and for her to revitalize her
social media presence, so then that way you too can
see the amazing artwork of NPCs and player characters pending discussing with them and all that good stuff on social medias and all that stuff. You can see the crazy cool talent
that's coming from Katherine.
Thank you so much for being a guest on Sidekicks and Side Quests. And
obviously I'm going to see you the next day, and we'll be sure to have you back as a guest on the show before too long.
Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. Yeah, I've never done something like this before. So it's been a great experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast through Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, and Overcast, or feel free to save the RSS feed to use the app of your choice. Visit our website, sidekicksandsidequests.com, for links, write-ups of the NPCs, and to learn more about the show and the guests who have been on it. To stay up to date and interact via social media, you can follow the podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Reddit by searching for SideKQ Podcast. I would love to talk D&D and showcase your fan art, stories of how you used our NPCs, discussions, and commentary. If you would like to hail the bard, simply send an email to sidekicksandsidequests@gmail.com. To help this show be the resource it's meant to be, I ask that you please leave a review on iTunes to help spread the word, and share our podcast with your friends and family. Whether you're a veteran player or an aspiring dungeon master, or you've never played Dungeons & Dragons before, there's something here for everyone, and I want to hear about it. And finally, after 2 years, I've decided to open a Patreon for Sidekicks and Side Quests. If you love this podcast and you want to help us grow and expand our operations, I would appreciate it if you would go on over to patreon.com/sidekicks and side quests. No matter your lifestyle expenses, we have wonderful rewards at every level of Patreon membership tier. Your name on the wall of the levitating platter, a loud hurrah on the podcast, or the possibility to introduce an element of chance to NPC creation. Sidekicks and Sidequests is unofficial fan content permitted under the fan content policy, meaning I'm not approved or endorsed by Wizards. Portions of the materials used are property Wizards of the Coast, copyright Wizards of the Coast, LLC. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you at the pub next time.
Bar to rock on 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sidekicks and Sidekicks.